How's it going, guys? And welcome to my UFC Fight Night Dillashaw vs Cruz prediction video. Basically, I've been looking forward to this since it was announced. But in the back of my mind, I was sort of thinking, Dominic Cruz might not fight because of his, you know, injury problems in recent years. So it's January the 16th now, and it looks like the fight will happen. It looks like it will happen. I can't wait. Really impressed with how Cruz has promoted the fight. Very analytical with his approach to promoting it, not chatting and swearing and acting all crazy. He's just stating facts, and that's what I sort of like. I like that style. It's kind of refreshing. Against Dillashaw, who's done a good job since beating Burrell the first time, holding on to the belt. So we'll see what happens in this. I'm going to do my prediction for the main card. Some juicy fights coming up on this main card as well. So this is going to happen in Boston, this card, so that's a great venue for the fights. Starting on the main card, Ross Pearson versus Francisco Trinaldo. Ross Pearson is from my country, England. Big fan of his. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of his, but I like the guy a lot since watching him on The Ultimate Fighter, and actually winning it. He's got a solid record in the UFC since 2009, so he's been in the organisation for quite a long time now, and he's done well for himself, beating some great guys. One of my favourite fights of his career was against Edson Barboza, and Barboza doesn't really seem to be in a boring fight. Dropped down to 145 for a bit, I believe. Yeah, he did featherweight. In recent times, though, since say like 2015, beat Sam Stout, knocked him out. I think he was the first guy to knock Sam Stout out as well. I know Sam Stout retired in recent times. I think he was knocked out 2 times in a row or something. Evan Dunham sort of dominated him with the old wrestling. Paul Felder, that was a really good win for Ross Pearson in my opinion. Great fight that was as well. So he can beat anybody on his day who's put in front of him. Yeah, and he's got that win over Gray Maynard as well. I mean, some people will say that's not such a good win, as in, the way Gray Maynard has performed in recent years, but it's still Gray Maynard. That guy's tough, so he's only 31, Ross Pearson as well, even though he's been around the sport for such a long time. 28 fights, 18 wins, and 9 losses, and is against Trinaldo, and Trinaldo is 37-year-old, which is pretty, I wouldn't say old, but it's for the lower weight classes, your best years are behind you because they rely so much on the movement and the speed, and the smaller guys seem to age quicker, put it that way. But he's on a 4-fight winning streak. Leonardo Silva, Ariola, Norman Park, and Chad Laprise. So he's doing well for himself. So going into this fight against Ross Pearson, I have a lot of confidence. I'm going to pick Ross Pearson. Knockout power. Got a good all-round game, I'd say, Ross Pearson. I think the only thing that's really gone against him is maybe just fighting technically better fighters on the stand-up or being against wrestlers. So that's really a typical English fighter disadvantage against the wrestlers. So I'm going to go with Ross Pearson in this, and I think he might stop it within the 3 rounds. Next of all, in the heavyweight division, is Travis Brown versus Matt Mitrione. I like both guys. Really fond of Matt Mitrione since seeing him on the Ultimate Fighter Season 10. He's now 37 years old, 6'3", 255, which is just over 18 stone. Big guy, and he moves. He moves like a middleweight, Matt Mitrione. He moves really well. I believe all of his fights have been in the UFC. He's got a record of 13. He's had 13 fights, 9 wins and 4 losses, and he had some exhibition bouts as well, losing one. Also played in the NFL. It says his height there is 6'2", but they might have it wrong. Okay, so in recent times, his last loss was against Ben Rothwell. I remember watching that and thinking, Matt made a mistake in that fight, got caught. And you don't want someone like Ben Rothwell squeezing on you. That's just not really a great thing to happen. But before that, he won an impressive run of form. KOing Sean Jordan, Derek Lewis, and Gabriel Gonzaga. Or he TKO'd Gonzaga. But I watched all those fights. I'm really impressed with him. I was disappointed seeing him lose against Brendan Schaub, got dominated on the ground in that one. And his previous losses before that was against Roy Nelson and Chet Congo, and there's no shame in losing against those guys because at that time, they had so much more experience than him. A bit before that, he had a good run of wins, beating Marcus Jones. I really like Marcus Jones on the Ultimate Fighter. Kimbo Slice, say what you want about Kimbo Slice, but that's a tough guy. You don't want to get into a fight with him. Joey Beltran, another tough guy. Tim Hague. And Christian Moorcraft. I remember I've watched all of his fights. I've watched all of Matt Michion's fights because I like him. So he's got a very, very good record in my opinion. So he's going to be against Travis Brown. Travis Brown is 33 years old now, 6'7", weighs in at a trim 236, which is really good for a guy of his size, to weigh in at that. Got an 80-inch reach as well, which is really impressive. He's had 21 mixed martial arts fights. He's won 17, and he's only lost 3. That's impressive. Got a decent amateur Muay Thai record. Well, he's won all of them, even though it's 2, but well done to him. Currently in a relationship with Ronda Rousey. Not bad. Well done, lad. So looking at his record, he's actually fought in Bellator as well. In 2009, it's pretty new. He's pretty new to it. He's pretty new to this. He's only been fighting for, say, 6 years. 7 years. I remember his fight against Chet Congo. That were a draw. But I think Chet Congo should have won that fight, if I remember it. I know he got a point deducted. But I think Chet Congo should have won that fight, if I remember it. I remember that KO against Stefan Struve, the super punch, or Superman punch KO, that was brutal. Just knocked him the fuck out. He beat Chad Griggs. I always fond of Chad Griggs, watching him at Strikeforce. So a little bit gutted that time. When he got knocked out against, or TKO'd against Bigfoot, he tore his ACL. It was clear as day something wrong with his knee, but he carried on fighting. You've got to respect him for that. He's only lost against top class guys or former champions. Bigfoot Silver at the time was juiced to the gills, so you don't want to fight a guy like that. Speak people like Gonzaga, Overeem, Josh Barnett. The Josh Barnett finish for me was very, very impressive. Because Josh Barnett for me he'll always be one of the greatest heavyweight fighters of all time. I don't think you can look past that. He's had his previous drug testing weirdness, with the steroids and stuff like that. But Josh Barnett's such a tough guy. Remember the Fabricio Verdun fight? I honestly thought Travis Brown was going to win that. Beat Brendan Schaub, just outclassed him in that one, and they had the TKO loss to Andrei Arlovsky, and that really could have gone anyway because it was such a reckless fight. It weren't really anything. It was just a reckless fight, and anybody could have been knocked out. So going into the Matt Mitrione fight, it's really a must-win fight in the way of, potentially getting a title shot. I don't lose 2 in a row, but in this one, I think it's much closer than some people think it will be. I'll never put anything past Matt Mitrione or Travis Brown, but I'm going to go with Travis Brown in this one, even though I've got a bit of a weird feeling Matt Mitrione might get the win. I've just got this weird feeling. But I'll go with Travis Brown. In the co-main event of the evening, Anthony Pettis is against Eddie Alvarez. Really impressed with Eddie Alvarez in his win against Gilbert Melendez. He's 31-year-old. I've just watched the build up to the fight. He was family ice skating and stuff. Seems a good family man. He's had 30 fights already and 26 wins, only losing 4 times. So he's got a great record. His recent form, he's beat people like Aoki, Michael Chandler. I think Chandler could hold his own in the UFC if he come over. I think he's a really good, exciting fighter. And in recent times, he's beat Gilbert Melendez, so got to respect him for that. Gilbert Melendez did test positive for some weird testosterone stuff. I don't know if he's done an interview about that since or talked about it, but it's something to do with testosterone. Oh, he actually says it there as well. So, yeah, so against Anthony Pettis. Before he lost against Rafael, on the Wheaties box, and he looked to be like one of the new big stars of MMA, and then he had that loss. He just got dominated. He's going to be 29 in late January, January the 27th, so happy birthday. So yeah, last time out, March 2015, he had the loss against Rafael dos Anjos, and I was so impressed with Rafael in that fight. That was just an amazing performance. It was almost perfect. The only thing that could have gone better is if he got a stoppage. Just shut Anthony out completely. But before that loss, he had a good streak, beating Jeremy Stevens, Joe Lozon, Cowboy, Benson Henderson, and Gilbert Melendez. So going into this fight against Eddie Alvarez, he's got a lot to prove, and I honestly think Percy will be going for the finish in this. I think he'll want a finish, or maybe just a nice decision. I think he'll have to use his movement. I think Anthony will win this. I don't know if he'll stop it though. I think it will go to a decision personally. I think it'll go to a decision, and I think Pettis will win it. In the main event of the evening, Dominic Cruz against TJ Dillashaw for the bantamweight title. Dominic Cruz is just 30-year-old now. Just turned, well, he'll be turning 31 in March of this year. Still a young guy, because he's been around for such a long time, so I really am surprised he's only 30. He is 30. 21 fights, 20 wins, and only one loss, and that was against Uriah Faber submission. Let's have a look at his record here. I mean, that record is amazing, because he beat most of these guys in their prime as well. Scott Jorgensen was a great contender at that time, and he was in his prime. Benavidez, maybe not, but good win that was. Faber, anybody that beats Faber gets my respect straight away, and his only loss is against Faber, so it's not like he's lost against some random guy. Ian McCall, a crazy guy that is. Ian McCall's a crazy guy. Demetrius Johnson, I mean, that's crazy. He's fought Demetrius Johnson, I sometimes forget about that fight. That was really interesting fight. I'm going to have to watch that again in SAAP as soon as I can, really. And, look at Mighty Mouse now. Look at that guy. He's one of the best fighters in the world. I'm going to have to listen to the Rogan podcast that he did with Mighty Mouse. So the last time Dominic Cruz fought was in 2014, September the 27th, and he just demolished Misagaki very quickly, just over 1 minute. But the guy has got a great record. I love his style, his foot movement. I remember hearing about him initially, and everyone was talking about his movement. I started watching his fights in the WEC, and I've been amazed with his style. TJ Dillashaw, 29-year-old, so there's not much of an age difference. There's not much of an age difference at all, and TJ will be turning 30 in February. 5'6", got a record of, total fights of 14, 12 wins, and 2 losses. So for a 29-year-old, that's a pretty, it's not really a big record, is it? He hasn't had that many fights compared to some people at a certain age. His last loss was against, I don't even know how you say that guy's name, Asante. I don't know how you pronounce it, because the Brazilians have weird pronunciations. It's like if, they call Ronda Rousey Honda Rousey or something like that, don't they? So, or Hoist Gracie and stuff. So, he's been KO'd or TKO'd against John Dodson in 2011. Now on The Ultimate Fighter. Had a good record on The Ultimate Fighter, winning 3 fights. He'll get to the final, of course. But the fight that stood out in my mind was obviously against Henan Brown at UFC 173. That in May 2014, demolished him, stopped him as well. I thought Brown were going to KO him, and I think most people thought that. But in recent times, I honestly do think Brown would be better off moving up a weight class. I think he just destroys his body trying to make weight. He even collapsed and smashed his head, I believe. Actually cutting weight one time. So you've got to give TJ Dillashaw a lot of credit, great record. He's a champion, simple as that. But for me to pick in this fight, I've got to go with Dominic Cruz. And the one thing I'm mainly concerned in, for that prediction, another main thing that concerns me is really if Dominic Cruz is confident. Is he confident with his body? Has he pushed himself like he used to be able to because of the injuries? I mean, that must be in the back of his mind when he's training, all the time. Will I get injured again? If I do this, will that happen, And if you're one of those guys that doesn't get injured often, you've got that sort of fearless thing in your training when you're not worried about anything like that. So hopefully Dominic's training has gone well, his weight cut and everything like that, so we'll be in for such an entertaining fight if that's the case. So I'm going to go with Dominic Cruz in this. I'm just, I won't be surprised if TJ won, don't get me wrong, but it would be really, really cool if Dominic did win, in my opinion. And I do think if he can stay healthy, that'd set up so many fights. That would set up so many potential amazing fights. I know there'd be like people talking about, let them fight Conor McGregor. Something like, I think Conor McGregor's too big for these bantamweights. I think Conor should stay clear of that and maybe just try and fight the 155 fighters. But I'd be very interested to see some of the fights that Dominic could have after this and see what happens. So I'm going to go with Dominic Cruz in that. So I appreciate you watching this prediction video. And I hope you enjoy the fights on Sunday. I keep on thinking it's Saturday night, but it's on Sunday night, so it's going to be interesting watching the fights on a Sunday. So thanks for watching, guys, and take care.